Hello and welcome back to another Farming Simulator Giants Editor tutorial, and today again this is going to be for Farming Sim 17. We're back on the mod map here. I've actually started a new one because I wanted to just show you something that I've come across in quite a few different mod maps, and I actually had to go to the Giants Developer Network and ask the question why it was happening, and luckily I got a reply which has fixed the problem. So I wanted to just share that with you today. So I've created a new field here, set all my dimensions up and everything else, and I actually own this field from the start. So as soon as I start my new game save, I actually own this field straight off the bat, so that's fine. So I'm just going to start up my harvester here, and we're just going to get into it. I've got my straw swath turned on, hopefully. There we go. So you've got it turned, you've got your straw swath turned on, and it's all doing what it's meant to do perfectly fine, excellent. And you harvest the field, and everything looks great. And then you get to a certain point in the field, which hopefully will come up soon, where you suddenly stop getting a straw swath. Nothing comes out at all, and then shortly after that, anytime now sort of thing, we should see that I will get this massive great pile form like so. And if I actually stop the harvester there and I'll turn around, I'm just going to show you this, don't want to do the whole field. If I actually turn around here and start harvesting again just here, we'll come back again, and again I will get a nice straw swath, perfect. And I'll get to a point again in this particular field, which I know where it is, but get to a point in the field, and again suddenly I will stop getting a straw swath. Continue on. Obviously I've still got it turned on and everything. The straw swath is turned on in the F1 menu here, and then I'll get to this same point again. Might not always be in the same position, but and I'll get a massive great pile of straw, then dump out onto the field. Now this is no big deal, I guess, but it can cause issues when you then start to pick it up either with your with your loading wagon, or perhaps maybe if you want to do baling or whatever else. Obviously with the way that these particular piles react now within Farming Simulator 17, you can actually get stuck in them. So to drive even your tractor perhaps, but even if your tractor manages to get through that big pile of straw there, or that one over there, chances are your little round baler is not going to be of much use to you. It's going to get stuck. It's not going to be able to cope with that. So I just want to try and show you here what is actually causing this and how we can overcome it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to exit out, and I'm going to go into the Giants editor, and I'll show you why this is actually occurring and what I was told on the Giants Developer Network, how to fix it. And as I say, I'm going to try and show you how to do that. So I'll see you in a little bit on the desktop when we get into Giants Editor. Okay, so here we are now in the Giants Editor, and as you can see here I've got my field all put down with my wheat and everything else. It is all set up, dimensions are all allocated correctly and all the rest of it, whatever else, which is what I originally thought was my problem. I hadn't set up the field dimensions correctly, or the mod map that I was playing on, somebody hadn't set up the actual dimensions correctly, and it was causing an issue. I was wrong. It wasn't that at all. What it actually is, with the new Farming Simulator 17, we have this brand new function where we can tip anywhere on the map. So we can get our harvester, get the grain in the harvester, and then basically unload the harvester right there on the side of the field. Or if we want to, we can put our grain or whatever else into a tipper trailer and then tip it anywhere we want on the map itself. But this has to be set up. So how do we do that? Well, what I'm going to show you first of all, and this is going to be probably the case for most mod maps that you will be using if you're creating a map for the first time. But if you're having issues with a map that's already been created, this may also help you eliminate the problem yourself without waiting for an update or whatever else, if you're comfortable to do this. But I'm going to just show you basically here on this mod map. This mod map is going to be based on Goldcrest Valley. I know that for a fact. So what I'm going to show here is what has not been removed. You can see everything else has been removed. So this was basically a Goldcrest Valley map, which has been then exported from the Giants Editor session, all the various bits and pieces, and then the buildings and whatever else has been removed, and the ground level has been completely leveled off. But what hasn't been removed is the actual setup for our tip collisions. So what I need to do here to actually bring those up so I can see them, with my terrain editing window open, and you can open this by going into the taskbar, go window and then go terrain editing if you haven't got it open already. In here what I'm going to do is come down to my info layer painting. Then what we would use this for in Farming Simulator 15 would be the nav meshes for our animals, but now we have an extra function, and in the info layer section here, if I click on the little drop down, we get this new one called tip cull. If I actually click onto that, it only gives us the one selection. Everything else is there is grayed out. I can't select any of the others. So we just get an info channel of 0. That's fine. So what I need to do then is come up to my terrain info layer painting mode tool here. So if I actually click on that, we now get this white sort of display come up all over the place, all over the entire map section. So if I zoom right out, we can actually see that in its entirety. And you can pretty much then tell from what you can see there that this is based on Goldcrest Valley. So how do we basically get rid of that? Well, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come up to my brush size here, because I want to change the brush size so I can erase a larger area of the map in one go, sort of thing. But if I actually slide my brush radius slider across to its maximum, it only goes up to 50. Obviously I've got the round brush on here, but that's really small. It's going to take me forever to go over the entire map. Even if I actually change my brush type to square, it's still going to take me a really long time. So what I'm going to do here is actually overwrite the 50, and I'm going to type in manually what I want to put in there. So I'm just going to type in there 1000 and hit my tab key on my keyboard. Now you can see my brush size is much bigger. I could go much higher than that if I wanted to, but because of the amount of information that I'm going to be basically redrawing, if you like, on the map itself, even though I'm erasing, it's still going to be classed as a redraw for the engine to recognize. I wouldn't recommend that you go too high. Experiment with that for your own system specs, your own computer system specs. You may find that if you go too high and try to remove too much at once, it can cause Giants Editor to crash. I've gone up to 2000 and above, and it's been perfectly fine for me. A little bit laggy, but it does work. But I would say to stick with 1000. That's perfectly fine. Gives you a much more adequate brush to work with. All I'm going to literally do here is just come up into the top corner here, hit my right mouse button and hold it, and I'm just going to drag across the map. As you can see, it is a little bit sort of behind what I'm doing, because it's having to do a fair amount of work to then erase that information. Okay, so now I've gone over the entire map. Because this is a mod map, I would theoretically be building my own map, so I would want to draw this back in a later date to then work with whatever map I tend to create. So I'm going to just reduce my brush size back down to something more workable. If I wanted to put that back in again, so for example I've actually created my fields and I've put all the appropriate buildings and roads and whatever else back onto the map that I want to put in there. So say I've got a building over here of some description, and I don't particularly want to be able to tip anything in that building for whatever reason. So all I would literally do with the same functions already turned on here, I would just press my left mouse button and draw. Exactly the same as what you would do with your nav mesh. But I'm just going to erase that for now, because the next thing I need to do here to actually make those changes permanent, so sticking with the actual original motion I've done here to remove all of the tip collision markers. Now the white areas are the areas where you cannot tip anything. This works for pretty much anything on the map at all, including obviously a straw swath, as I've already proven there. So if I wanted to have an area where I couldn't tip any grain or whatever else, that is the area I would paint in white, like so. But if I wanted to obviously have an area that I did want to tip a product or have my straw swath, then I would need to have that as blank, as you can see it is here now. Okay, so now that I've created my areas on the map, let's say for example and I want to then have that permanently recognized by the engine. What I need to do is actually update the tip collision info GRLE. I can show you that if I go into the actual map structure here. So if I go into map 01, we have this tip col info layer.grle. This is what I'm going to basically be updating to represent what this tip collision setup is going to be for this particular map. And the way that I need to do that is I need to come and run another script here, which luckily is built into the 7.0.5 version of Giants Editor. So all I need to do here is literally click on scripts, go to FS17 map, and I've got this create ground collision map. And if I actually click on that, you need to give it a little bit of time, because in the corner here will actually say ready. It won't give you any further information. And what you need to do is wait for this in your console to generate this section down the bottom here which says generating collision map, saving collision map to, and then the path file name to that particular setup. And that is basically how I would go about setting up the tip collision feature of this particular map. Once I've done that, I can then obviously save the map, which I will do, and we'll go back into game, and then I'll show you that it does actually work, and I can now get my straw swath across the entire area of that field. Now, one thing to note, once you do this, it will update, as I say, that tip collision GRLE. You would then need to start a new game save, because the game save will have its own tip collision info layer.grle in it, and if you were to then do this and then work with a game save that you've already got, it will make no difference whatsoever, because the game will be looking at the tip collision info layer.grle for that game save, not the one from your actual mod map. So you would need to start a completely new game save for it to take effect. Any changes you make to that tip collision, you would need to start a new game save for it to take effect. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. There is workarounds, but I'm not going to get into those. This is what I would recommend if you do make any changes like I've done here, and then regenerate your tip collision GRLE to start a new game save. Okay, so I'm going to jump into game and we'll have a look, and I will show you that hopefully that is now fixed. I'm pretty sure it will be. I'm confident it will be, but I just want to double check. So I'm going to bring you guys along and show you that. So I'll see you back in game in a little bit. Okay, so here we are in game, and I've, as I said already, started a brand new game save, because you need to do that for the tip collision info layer.grle to accept those changes and not conflict with the one that will be in your game save folder for that particular game save. So brand new game save, and we're just going to start the harvester up here, and we'll get into the field again with my straw swath turned on, and we can see that it's painting down the straw swath, or laying down the straw swath perfectly fine. So if I just run down this particular lane here, whatever you want to call that, and we can see that that is laying down perfectly fine, no problems whatsoever. I'm not going to harvest the entire field. Just want to show you that now that I've regenerated that tip collision setup, all my straw swath is laying down perfectly fine. And we've gone way past the area that it wasn't working previously, but I will go to the end of the field here just so you can see it does do it at complete length without any issues. And then what I will do when we get to the end of the field, I will actually tip out the grain here onto the ground so you can see that that works as well. Again, if I was to have an incorrect tip collision set up, I would not be able to run that feature either. Okay, so there we go, we're at the end of the field here. So what I'll do here is I'm just going to put the pipe out, bring up my F1 menu here, and we should get some sort of an unload here. There we go, left control and I. So if I do that, there we go, we get our grain out onto the ground, no problem. So all of that is working as I want it to. Now again, to just recap, white areas, once you create your, or when you create your tip collision setup on your map, the white areas will not allow you to tip anything in, and the clear areas you can pretty much tip anywhere in that area that you want to. So white areas will not allow you to tip, non-white areas will allow you to tip. Hopefully I've made that as clear as I can, and how to overcome issues with the straw swath, which uses exactly the same function as your tip anywhere for your grain and whatever else. This uses the same parameters to my understanding, which is why obviously there's a conflict there if you do have the tip collision set up incorrectly. So there we go. Hopefully that's been of some help to you if you've had this issue before like I have, or if you are perhaps maybe creating a new map for yourself or for whatever else, and you didn't know about this and you were having some tip collision issues. This again may be of some use to you. So thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.